This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thalahungva. A standoff in Sioux Country. The governor of South Dakota is calling for the Oglala Sioux and the Cheyenne River Sioux tribes to take down roadblocks. Yet Cheyenne River Sioux Tribal Chairman Harold Frazier says, quote, "We will not apologize for being an island of safety in a sea of uncertainty and death." While both tribes have issued strict stay-at-home orders, the state has not issued one. The two tribes are monitoring traffic coming in and out of their reservations as a way to help keep the coronavirus out of their communities. They are limiting entrance to only essential activity, and everyone coming or going must first fill out a health questionnaire. In response to the governor's Kristi Noem's letter sent on Friday, 17 South Dakota congressmen sent a letter on Sunday to the governor, reminding her the state does not have jurisdiction on reservation lands. The bipartisan letter also criticized the governor for actions they say are confrontational, demanding, and causing a constitutional crisis. The letter also accuses the governor of failing to request help from the legislatures whose districts include tribal people, lands, and government. Those lawmakers say they could have helped facilitate a conversation, but instead the governor sent an ultimatum to both tribes. All parties are calling for a meeting to address the situation. Chairman Harold Frazier wrote in his letter, quote, "We invite you to join us in protecting the lives of our people." In Oklahoma, Congresswoman Kendra Horn is holding a virtual town hall on Tuesday evening. It will focus on issues facing tribal communities during this pandemic. Topics include healthcare, unemployment, economic development, and how the funds from the CARES Act can be used. Horn says, quote, "Indian country cannot be left behind, and that tribal sovereignty must be recognized and honored." She is including a rear admiral from the Indian Health Service in the town hall, as well as a representative from the U.S. Census, among other people. A bipartisan bill to grant tribes emergency access to broadband internet is making its way through Congress. This bill would temporarily help ensure Native American communities have access to telehealth, education opportunities, and economic relief during the pandemic. In the House, the bill is being sponsored by Deb Haaland from New Mexico and Tom Cole from Oklahoma. In the Senate, the bill is being sponsored by Martin Heinrich from New Mexico. Cole says that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, tribes need broadband access. Heinrich adds that, quote, "The federal government's lack of investment and failure to ensure adequate broadband access in Indian country created an uneven playing field long before the public health crisis. They are asking for $300 million to help change the situation." For the latest numbers in COVID-19 cases in Indian country, let's go to our Washington editor, Jordan Bennett-Bigay. Hello, Jordan.
Yate Patty, yate shikisto shidine.
Let's start first with a history-making event today at the Supreme Court, the McGirt versus Oklahoma case. Tell us about what the justices said today in hearing the oral arguments.
Yes, sure. So this morning we were, listening into the Supreme Court case. It's the first time the public was able to listen in live stream for this court case, and a lot of people were paying attention to what Justice Neil Gorsuch would say in this case, because in a similar case to this, the Carpenter versus Mercy, he recused himself from that case, which left that case in a deadlock, and now there are 9 justices. But it seems to be that a lot of these justices were still trying to, figure out if talking about statehood. They're talking about dependent tribal, the dependent Indian community. They were talking about, just sovereignty in general, which just is the question now. And Gorsuch has more knowledge when it comes to tribal sovereignty. As earlier last year, he voted in favor of tribes in 2 cases.
So, historic day hearing the justices listen to the lawyers presenting this case. So now we wait for the next step, for the opinion.
Yes, we do. And we don't know when that will come out, but we're closely paying attention to that story.
And we'll follow that. Okay.
Yes, we will.
Tell us the numbers of COVID cases now, please.
There are now a total of 4,288 positive confirmed cases and 131 deaths within the Indian health system. Again, that is 4,288 positive confirmed cases and 131 deaths within the Indian health system, Patty.
All right. Thank you so much, Jordan Bennett Begay.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back. Massachusetts is a hotspot for COVID-19, and it's presenting a problem for Larry Fisher, who is trying hard to protect his people. Welcome to our program, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Patty.
Tell us about your people and where they're located in relationship to Boston, Massachusetts.
Sure. So, Aquani, Winnikisak, Nutasuis, Wampamiquin, Wampatuk, Nitomas, Massachusetts, Nisomas, Matakise, Kotirika. I am from Massachusetts, which the Commonwealth bears its name from. Boston was once called Shawmut, which was one of the villages of the Massachusetts people. Where we are is in Pembroke, Massachusetts. We're about 30 minutes going southeast of Boston today.
And tell us about the Matakisset people. How many members do you have?
Sure, Patty. We're relatively a small community that's revitalized our efforts only up around 2014. Today we have about 250 enrolled tribal applicants within our tribal community. And we're a small tribe here within the confines of the Massachusetts state.
And how has the pandemic hit your community?
Sure, Patty. We have several members who've tested positive for the COVID-19 virus, and we've had one confirmed death within our tribal community of the COVID-19 as well.
Well, apologies, just condolences for that. And it's just, it is something that has really taken hold in a lot of Native communities across the country here. How are you protecting your people?
Sure, it's a great question. We're doing our best. We've garnished ally support and some philanthropic foundations who have been willing to understand the plight of the local indigenous communities here and have helped and supported in resources. We've had other organizations who've donated masks to our tribe, and some foundations, they've donated very small amounts of seed funding to support tribal members with getting food, picking up medications, giving other tribal members gas so that we can get to other tribal members' homes to drop off food and medications, things of that nature.
You have a Sacred Fire Emergency Fund. Explain how that works.
Yeah, so we're what's considered, we've put together something called an ad hoc committee, which is volunteer-based. And it's basically to try to work on pertinent issues that the Matakisset tribe face within an emergency such as COVID-19's pandemic. It's based off of 4 or 5 volunteers from the community, some indigenous, some non-indigenous, maybe 1 or 2 from the tribe. And we put this committee very quickly together as just an ad hoc committee. It is not a nonprofit organization. It's just a simple volunteer group that's trying to garnish small resources to get out to the tribe.
And how is that working out?
So far, the Matakisset tribe, we've received $1,000 from the New England Grassroots Environmental Fund. We've worked with them in the past on pertinent situations. And also the environmental, I think it's called the Environmental Indigenous Network, or Environmental Indigenous Network. They have also garnished us with $2,000 to support in this effort. So a total of resources really we've been able to get was $3,000 during this COVID-19 pandemic to support our people.
And are you following CDC guidelines, or are you issuing your own orders, like stay at home or anything like that?
Yeah, the tribe, internally, we've issued out our own orders to our tribal members, stay at home, and basically to practice all the same guidelines as the CDC as well.
Mm-hmm. And on your website, it's interesting to look at the application for membership because you have a category for non-Native people.
Yeah, so we have the category for non-Native people. That's where we have our ally support. Within our tribal community, Patty, we look at the way that to become a community and to be a sustainable community, we need to build community. So just as tribal members today are citizens and exercise that dual citizenship within their own states, we ask for other folks to come in and join our community to better understand us as well. They don't have rights to vote within our tribal community, but they get treated in such as respect to a Matakeesit.
All right, and it's the history for the indigenous people in Massachusetts is very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the Enfranchisement Act of 1869 that gave citizenship, state citizenship to tribal people, indigenous people there in Massachusetts, and also the right to vote in state elections.
It did. The 1869 Indian Enfranchisement Act is one act of what we would like to say as strategic perpetuated genocide by way of paper. And what I mean by that, Patty, is that in the act, though the act seems so gracious enough to give the tribal people citizenship, unfortunately, the language within that act plays a strategic act of aggression toward indigenous people here in Massachusetts. What that act is saying is that we will give you citizenship just like the rest of the citizens, but as we do that, we will take away your lands, whether they were held in perpetuity or within confines of constrictive covenants, but we'll go ahead and do away with your lands, and these lands will be put into a process called a fee simple. So it's an act of trickery in that sense, and it's really played a major downfall on the advancement of tribal people here in Massachusetts.
So how have you handled that in all of these years, of history with that act and with where indigenous people in Massachusetts stand today?
So because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts today does not have a specific criteria for indigenous peoples to petition for recognition, though they have a Commission on Indian Affairs, what we do is we've garnished a lot of support by the draft declaration under the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Inside that declaration, Article 3's right to self-determination is a supportive article that the Matakeesit people specifically utilize around self-determination and being able to say, look, when this act was created in Massachusetts, the 1869 Indian Enfranchisement Act, there was no meaningful consultation with the Indians involved who it would affect then and now. So what we say is that without any meaningful consultation and without any FPIC, free, prior, informed consent, and with the supportive document that even Obama supported in 2010 on how the US would support the indigenous nations around their self-determination, we continue to stand by those principles, Patty, and we continue to move and exercise our right to self-determination and such.
And that's at the UN level. What about the process of federal recognition?
Sure. The process of federal recognition for tribes here in Massachusetts, we're looking to support the Bureau of Indian Affairs on helping them to understand the inadequate language that is drafted in the CFR Part 25, CFR 25 Part 83 requirements for tribes to meet this strenuous definition of being an Indian tribe. Patty, it's been 400 years for the Matakeesit people and other tribes here in Massachusetts of contact period, and for tribes to have to prove to the Bureau of Indian Affairs that we must have sustained tribal governance in such an organized structure for 400 years, it's almost nearly impossible.
Well, so, and you're saying that in particular for your group.
Yes, in particular, I only speak for the Matakisa people. I don't speak for any other tribes, of course.
And there, in that federal recognition process, there are a number of tribes who have achieved federal recognition in, say, the last 10 years. But there are also a number of tribes who've been denied that because, for this reason, not being able to prove one or more of the 7 criteria. Do you think that you'll ever start the process of federal recognition?
Yes, in fact, Patty, it's a twofold process. We have began to look and review the process so that we can petition for federal recognition. And to be really quite honest with you, after careful review with ourselves and our legal team, we do meet all of the criteria for federal recognition and can petition for federal recognition. There are concerns within the criteria for us to meet the criteria for federal recognition that we do see that could cause an issue for other tribes. Fortunately, my tribe has been able to trace down all of the documentation and genealogical records that we do need to petition and be successful in the petitioning.
So, and that's a long process. I mean, any tribe who's gone through that can attest to that, and it can be very expensive.
Yes, it can be very expensive, and this is one of the obstacles that we do face. And there's more obstacles that tribes face around trying to develop nonprofit organizations that are tribally owned and operated and led.
So what's your next step in that process?
So our next step is to sit back and I think we're going to watch what takes place here. I do believe, when we talk about COVID-19 from an Indigenous perspective or from the Matakisa perspective, we look at this virus, Patty, as an agent of change. And we are surely waiting to see what kind of changes brings about due to the COVID-19, especially when pertaining to the recognition processes of Native people here in Indian country.
That's very true. I mean, we're going to see a lot of different changes in all aspects of life, and most likely, in government as well, because we're seeing the disparities very clearly across Indian country. So, what kind of changes would you like to see?
The kind of changes that I'd like to see at the federal level are more meaningful consultation, more efforts put forward with the free, prior, informed consent at the forefront as well. And also, hopefully, that the federal government can maybe identify more liaisons and representatives of Indian country here on the East Coast, specifically here in Massachusetts, that can work with the federal government in a real partnership to create the most sensitive, culturally appropriate opportunity for tribes to petition for federal recognition and actually feel like they have some hope in the effort of doing so.
There are 2 federally recognized tribes in Massachusetts right now. And how are you all related?
So it's very interesting. It's a good question. Most of our sachems, which are our chiefs in the 1600s, were very closely related to one another. So each sachem was sent out to the different villages, and they were sent out to those villages to set up community and village homestead, so that when the English came, each sachem could protect those specific areas of land. So when that happened, those sachems basically developed their own villages in their bands, in which they ruled over. And today, a lot of these sister tribes, which we call them, are cousins and brothers and sisters of each tribe. So we are related in that sense. So now when you look at genealogical records today, you'll see so much intermingling and intertwining of genealogy and of lineage.
And I believe you were saying that some of your people are also enrolled in those other tribes.
Yeah, I think, for us, some of our folks, because they have different lines, like some people who may be Massachusetts may also have lines that go into Narragansett, or lines that go into Namasket, or lines that go into Natick or Ponkapog. You know, we're so intermingled and we married so closely. And because of all the acts and the laws in Massachusetts, it forced us to have to hide from one village and then go and hide out into another village. So when that took place, a lot of intermingling took place. So you have people in my tribe who can very well so easily, apply for another tribe and be accepted because of their genealogy.
And then there are 5 bands is it Matakeesit people?
Of Massachusetts Nation, the Massachusetts Nation. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we have today, you have the Ponkapogs, okay? Then you have the Matakeesits, you have the Chappaquiddics, you have the Natics, and you have the Namaskets. So you have 5 bands that are active today that make up the overall Massachusetts Nation.
And you're one of those.
Yes, Matakeesit is one of those.
It's interesting again to hear about, and we're talking about a relatively small area of land when you compare that to, say, tribes in the Great Plains or even in the Southwest that have large land bases. But your traditional territory, how much did that cover?
So when we talk about, traditional territory, we're talking about pre-contact. So pre-contact, our villages were set up everywhere from the Narragansett Bay to the Pokanoket Territory to Assawamsett to Titicut, all the way out to Neshoba Valley, which was a large mass. You're covering, 3 different counties within the Commonwealth state of Massachusetts. Each tribe, like I said, depending on which sachem you descend from, you are set up inside of a specific village. So my family's village, our main village, is called Titicut, which is Cotiticut, which is based in 3 different towns, Taunton, Middleborough, and Bridgewater. So that's where we are made up at. That's where our village is today.
And your language is still pretty much, or how intact would you say it is?
Actually, it's a great question, Patty. Our language is very much so intact. There was a gentleman by the name of John Eliot, who was a missionary, and his job was to try to convert these Massachusetts Indians into Christianity. And some of them went, and they did, and some groups didn't. My group specifically, Matakeesit, we did not convert into Christianity, but our Natick brothers and sisters and relatives, they did convert into Christianity. But when that effort happened, they wanted to, John Eliot's mission was to revitalize the Bible in the Massachusetts language. So he did create the dictionary called the Natick Dictionary in the Massachusetts language. So we do still have access to our language, and we do practice that within tribal community today.
A lot of tribes on the East Coast are matriarchal, governed by women. Is that the same for Indigenous people there in Massachusetts?
So it's a conflict. And again, I can only speak for Matakeesit. What we have seen in the history of the Matakeesit people is that it's actually been patriarchal, because the sachems have mainly been men within the Massachusetts nation. Here and there, you will find, such as Awashonks, she was the sachem of Sakonnet. You will find here and there, or Weedamo, who was the sachem of Pecasset. You will find here and there pockets of sachems who were women, which did make up a matriarchal society in that sense. But specifically for the Matakeesit people, we are not a matriarchal society.
Wow, it's fascinating to hear this history and to learn a little bit more about Indigenous people there in the state of Massachusetts. And again, what does that word mean, Massachusetts, and how do you say it in your language?
Yes, so just a quick history lesson here, or a language lesson. So ut or uk always means in the place of, okay? It's the way that the Indigenous person who speaks of where they're from represents their connection to which lands they come from. So when we say uk, we mean in the place of, or meaning this is where I reside and where I come from. So when we say Massachusetts, we say Massachusetts, uk in the place of, masa meaning great, And then Chusa in our language means hill. So in the place of the great hill, which represents our main village at Ponkapog, which is in Canton, Massachusetts today. It's a beautiful nature reserve today where people like to go. They go hiking, skiing, biking, trailing, etc. But it represents Ponkapog. But Massachusetts means the place of the great hill.
One quick word you want people to remember about your people.
One quick word. Self-determination.
Oh, very good. Okay, well, Larry Fisher, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about your people.
Thank you, Patty.
All right, and thank you for watching Indian Country Today. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Tholahungva. We'll see you again tomorrow.
This is Indian Country Today.